For a vigilante who's 80 years old, you can imagine that Batman has been there, done that, and gotten the Bat t-shirt. He's had to face some of the nastiest and greatest villains in the DC universe each and every month, while at the same time having to train a very large amount of vigilantes he's picked up off the street. And he's had to do it all while dressed as a giant bat in a suit that doesn't let him turn his head around. What a legend. However, for someone who is literally known as the Dark Knight, there have been, as you can imagine, some skeletons that Bruce Wayne would probably be happier to keep locked in his closet. From illicit rendezvous to the loss of his son, what follows is a look at those moments in Batman's past that made every fan's jaw hit the floor. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 Batman moments that shocked the world. Number 10, that scene with Catwoman in the New 52. After DC had finished up the Flashpoint arc, it decided to press the reset button and, in doing so, launched the New 52 upon the world. This run would last nearly 5 years and would face a huge amount of backlash. There were a lot of reasons for this, but the main argument seemed to be that for every Court of Owls or death of the family, there were some major missteps such as Convergence. And things weren't helped at all by the first issue of Catwoman. After her apartment was firebombed, Selina Kyle set out to find who was responsible. This led to a run-in with some Russian gangsters and ended with her in a penthouse suite, bumping uglies with the Dark Knight. There was no need for it. It did neither character any favors and seemed to be included so DC could just say, well, this proves we're not kids, look at all the shagging. Number 9, the Bat Penis Scandal. If the previous entry had the internet up in arms, then this one from Batman Damned caused it to nearly explode. Instead of it developing some notoriety for its story, Damned ended up making headlines for one specific reason. It showed off Batman's penis. Now, it wasn't as if you could just see his meat and 2 veg on full display. The Bat jewels were thankfully kept in silhouette, thank God, because I bet they're massive. But there was enough of an outline for people to throw up their keyboards in anger and complain about it until DC had to take notice. Having realized that they may have made a monumental mistake, what somebody think of the children, they decided that the best course of action would be to make sure it was taken out of any future printings. While the digital comic had its art adjusted, it seemed at the time to be nothing more than a storm in a teacup. But enough people had been offended by the sight of Bruce's little Wayne that DC bowed to pressure. Number 8, letting Jason Todd get away with murder. Out on patrol one night, Jason Todd heard a scream coming from an apartment. Swinging into action, he would burst through the window to find himself face to face with Philippe Garzonis and his henchman Juan. After they had been on the arse end of an arse whooping, Robin would enter the bathroom and find Gloria Stanson, who had been beaten and raped. Even though it seemed like he had them banged to rights, both the men involved backed up each other's stories, and worse, they were protected by diplomatic immunity. This would drive Jason over the edge, and after he had shown up at Philippe's place, readers were shown an image of Garzonis plummeting from his balcony. When the Dark Knight arrived, he questioned if he had slipped or if he was pushed, to which Jason replied that Philippe, scared by the boy Wonder's arrival, fell to his death. The story was left open-ended so that the reader could make up their own mind, but the obvious conclusion is that Robin had been responsible for Philippe's death. To make matters worse, if the last panel is anything to go by, Batman knew it. Number 7, the torture and death of Stephanie Brown. Stephanie Brown should probably have never become Robin. It's safe to say that when Batman found out that she was running around pretending to be the girl Wonder, he should have sent her packing. But against his better judgment, he took her in and trained her before firing her after she ignored his instructions while out in the field. This made Stephanie eager to prove herself to the Dark Knight and set into motion the events that would become war games. If inadvertently unleashing a citywide gang war in Gotham wasn't bad enough, she was captured by the Black Mask, who tortured her extensively, trying to extract information out of her about Batman. And even though she resisted and eventually escaped the clutches of Roman Sionis, the trauma of it would be too much for her and she would die in the hospital from her injuries. And all of this could have been averted if Bruce Wayne had just told her to go home. Number 6, Damian Wayne's death. When Damian Wayne was first introduced to the Bat family, there really wasn't a great deal of love for him. He was spoiled, arrogant, as well as downright annoying, and it seemed to everyone that sooner or later he would go the same way as Jason Todd. However, by the time Grant Morrison and Chris Burnham introduced Batman Incorporated into the New 52, Damian had started to turn his entire character around. Sure, he was still showing some of the traits that had turned people away from him in the first place, but thanks to some great writing, he was also winning plenty of fans over. When the Leviathan Leviathan storyline happened, Damian found himself with a price on his head thanks to his mother, Talia al Ghul. The culmination of this saw him come face to face with his very dysfunctional family, and in the ensuing battle, in one of the most jaw-dropping moments of all time, he was killed by his own brother. Number 5. Try Me. Grant Morrison was at it again during the 2008 event Final Crisis. After the conclusion of the New Gods arc, Darkseid's spirit was sent crashing through time and ended up on Earth inside the body of a human being. Not one to let such a thing slow him down, he soon amassed a huge army of supervillains hell-bent on taking over the world, which, in turn, brought about a huge battle between good and evil, as it always does. What looked like an insurmountable task, and one that the heroes just couldn't win, was yanked from the jaws of defeat when Batman did what Batman always does and attacked Darkseid in one final act of bravery. Pulling a gun on the Lord of Apocalypse, he fired a radon bullet at him, which left Darkseid mortally wounded. As Darkseid had predicted, the Dark Knight could not outrun his Omega beams even if he did manage to kill him, and this was shown on the last page of issue 6 when Superman emerged from the destruction carrying the very char-grilled corpse of Batman. Number 4. Death of the Family. There is not one singular moment that stands out as the most shocking in Death of the Family. The main plot itself is filled to the brim with so many oh my god moments as well. But without a shadow of a doubt, the most disturbing moment, the one that still haunts the dreams of comic book fans everywhere, is the one that starts the whole thing off, when the Joker gets the dollmaker to cut off his face before he escapes Arkham. There is just something so stomach-churning about seeing his flayed face hanging on the wall, all bloodied and torn. Yeah, it's alright, I didn't plan on sleeping tonight anyway, thanks guys. Number 3, the Joker kills Jason Todd. Before his triumphant return as the Red Hood, Jason Todd was about as popular as a turd in the wind. After Dick Grayson had given up the mantle of Robin to branch out on his own as Nightwing, it fell to Jason Todd to fill that rather large role. Sadly for him, he was roundly rejected for a myriad of reasons, the main one being, well, that he wasn't Dick Grayson. This all came to a head in the Death in the Family story, when DC would decide to allow the general public, because that's always a good idea, to decide if Jason lived or died. As you probably know by now, they chose the latter option. After Batman fired him, Jason went off in search of his birth mother. This led him to Lebanon, where he found her, but unknown to him, so had the Joker. This then led to his mother betraying him and the Joker beating him half to death with a crowbar before locking both mother and son in a room with a giant bomb. What followed has since gone down in comic book history, as Jason sacrificed his life by taking the brunt of the explosion to protect the woman who had readily betrayed him. If the fact that DC readers themselves voted for this to happen wasn't shocking enough, then the image of bats emerging with the corpse of Jason surely was. Number 2, pretty much everything from The Killing Joke. For something that was just supposed to be a standalone graphic novel, The Killing Joke has since gone on to have a lasting effect on the Batman universe. From this book, the Joker's backstory was pretty much set in stone, even if it would undergo a few tweaks here and there over the years, and it would also give us the character of Oracle, Barbara Gordon, who was then going by the identity of Batgirl. As she waits for a friend so they can go out, a knock on the door sees Barbara eagerly answer, only to be greeted by the Joker holding a gun. It would only take one bullet, but that shot severs her spine and leaves her wheelchair bound in the 2 decades to come. And if that wasn't enough to shock you, he then proceeds to kidnap Commissioner Gordon and tries to drive him insane, only being thwarted when Batman shows up and saves the day, potentially even killing him. Number 1. Bane Bricks Batman's back. There couldn't be anything other than this for the number 1 spot, could there? After all, many had come close to beating Batman over the years, but nobody had actually achieved it. That was, however, until Bane arrived on the scene. In Nightfall, Bane sets out to rule Gotham and to do what he needs to get rid of its protector. But just to defeat Batman, just to beat him, isn't enough for Bane. No, he wants to break him completely. He sets about doing this by running the Dark Knight ragged, unleashing wave upon wave of villains on him and pushing him towards both physical and mental collapse. And then, when the time is just right, he reveals himself as the mastermind behind it all. A terrific fight follows, where an already weakened caped Crusader is at a massive disadvantage. And it all ends when Bane, who has beaten Bruce Wayne from pillar to post, picks him up and breaks his back over his knee. Even to this day, it's still a shock to see it happen, even though you know it's coming. And that's why it'll forever remain Batman's most shocking moment. So that's our list. I know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there any moments that I missed off here? I'm sure there are. There are some ridiculous things that happen to this superhero, but I want to know down in the comments below. And while you're there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more list news like this every single day. Even if you don't, though, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.